No one could work with the businessman's wife, until one woman got courage and Sarah Johnson clenched the glass of orange juice between her fingers as she watched her employer yell at her for the third time that day. It was only her second week at the Anderson mansion, but she had already witnessed scenes that made her question whether she really needed this job. "Are you stupid or doing this on purpose?" Jennifer Anderson shrieked, pointing at the potted plants Sarah had watered. "I told you not to touch my plants. Now you've ruined everything." "But ma'am, the gardener asked me to." "I don't care what that useless man told you." Jennifer stepped closer, her eyes flashing with anger. "You're just like all the others who've worked here. Incompetent, sloppy, a disgrace." Sarah felt something snap inside her. 15 years working as a housekeeper, always treated with respect by previous families. But she had never met anyone like Jennifer Anderson, a woman who seemed to take pleasure in humiliating those who depended on her paycheck to survive. "You know what I think?" Sarah raised the glass, and before she could think twice, she poured the entire contents onto her employer's face. The silence that followed was deafening. Jennifer stood frozen, orange juice dripping down her perfectly styled hair and staining the green dress that cost more than Sarah's yearly salary. Across the room, Michael Anderson dropped the documents he was reading, his mouth hanging open. You just..." Jennifer stammered, touching her wet face in disbelief. "I just did what every other maid wanted to do, but didn't have the courage for," Sarah replied, placing the empty glass on the coffee table. "And you know what? I'm not leaving until I figure out why you act like this." Michael stood from the couch, adjusting his tie in a nervous gesture Sarah had noticed was a tic of his when uncomfortable. "Sarah, I think it's best if you gather your things and..." "No," she interrupted, keeping her gaze fixed on Jennifer, who was still in shock. "I've worked in many homes, Mr. Michael. I've met demanding employers, perfectionists, even some with temper issues. But I've never seen anyone with as much anger in their heart as your wife." Jennifer finally reacted, wiping her face with the back of her hand. "How dare you analyze me? You don't know me." "That's exactly what I plan to change," Sarah crossed her arms. "Because no one is born like this. Something happened to turn you into who you are today." Michael cleared his throat, clearly wanting to end the awkward situation. "Sarah, I'll pay your severance and..." "Mr. Michael, with all due respect, when was the last time you actually talked to your wife?" The question caught the businessman off guard. "Because from what I've seen these past 2 weeks, you come home from work, eat in silence, and lock yourself in your office until bedtime." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now, continuing. The tension in the air was palpable. Jennifer wiped the juice still trickling down her neck, her eyes burning with a mix of fury and something Sarah couldn't quite place. "You have no right to talk about my marriage," Jennifer said, but her voice came out weaker than she intended. "You're right, I don't," Sarah agreed. "But I do have the right to understand why you fired 15 employees in 6 months. Why you throw food on the floor just to watch the maids clean it on their knees. Why you scream at everyone who tries to help you." Michael looked at his wife in surprise. "Jennifer, is this true?" "None of your business," she replied quickly, but Sarah noticed how she avoided her husband's gaze. "Of course it's my business," Michael countered, with a firmness Sarah hadn't seen before. "I pay these women's salaries, and if you're treating them this way..." "You care more about the maids than you do about me," Jennifer exploded. "Like always, everyone else comes before me." The accusation echoed through the room. Michael looked visibly shaken, and Sarah realized she had touched a deep wound in their marriage. "Jennifer, I work to provide comfort for you, for us." "Comfort," she laughed bitterly. "You think money solves everything, don't you? Buy expensive gifts and pretend that makes up for your absence." Sarah watched the argument with growing understanding. There was far more going on in that house than just a spoiled employer's bad mood. "You two are fighting over the wrong person," Sarah interjected softly. "The problem isn't me or Mr. Michael's work. The problem is that you're avoiding talking about something very important." Jennifer turned to her with red-rimmed eyes. "You don't know anything. Nothing. I know happy people don't need to make others suffer to feel better," Sarah replied gently. "And I know couples who love each other don't live like strangers under the same roof." Michael ran a hand through his hair, a gesture Sarah had noticed before when he wanted to avoid a difficult conversation. "Sarah, I appreciate your concern, but family matters are private, I know," she finished. "But when those private matters make 15 women lose their jobs in 6 months, they stop being just private." Jennifer took a few steps back, hugging herself as if she were cold, despite the afternoon heat in New York City. "I want you out of my house," she said, but her voice trembled. "I'll leave," Sarah agreed. "But first I'll tell you why I took this job." Michael and Jennifer looked at her with curiosity mixed with apprehension. "My sister Patricia worked in this house 5 years ago," Sarah began, noticing how Jennifer paled. "She was here only 3 weeks, but when she came home she was different." "Different how?" Michael asked. "She couldn't work anymore. She had nightmares, panic attacks, spent days unable to get out of bed." Sarah kept her eyes fixed on Jennifer, who had started trembling visibly. "The doctors said it was severe depression, but Patricia never wanted to say what happened here." Jennifer covered her mouth, and Sarah saw tears forming in her eyes. I don't remember any Patricia," Jennifer lied, but her voice was barely audible. "Brown hair, about 45 at the time, very quiet and dedicated," Sarah described. "She loved to cook and always said she wanted to work in a home where she could care for a real family." "Stop," Jennifer whispered. "She told me one thing before I took this job," Sarah continued, ignoring the plea. "She said there was a woman in this house who was suffering terribly, but didn't know how to ask for help." Jennifer collapsed onto the couch, covering her face with her hands. Michael rushed to her, clearly alarmed. "Jennifer, what's going on?" "Patricia was here when... She couldn't finish, sobbing. Michael looked at Sarah for answers, but she shook her head, signaling that Jennifer needed to say it herself. "When what, honey?" Michael knelt beside his wife, gently touching her arm. "When we lost the baby," Jennifer whispered, and the words fell like a bomb in the silent room. Michael froze. Sarah saw all the color drain from his face. "Jennifer," he tried to speak, but she cut him off. "You don't even remember him, do you?" She lifted her tear-streaked face. "To you it was just a medical complication we resolved and moved on from." "That's not true," Michael stammered. You didn't even cry," she shouted. "Not a single tear." "You said it was better this way, that we weren't ready anyway." The silence that followed was heavy with years of unprocessed pain. Sarah stayed quiet, knowing she was witnessing a conversation that should have happened long ago. "I did cry," Michael finally said, his voice hoarse. "I cried so much, but not in front of you because I thought I needed to be strong for you." "Strong?" Jennifer laughed through her tears. "You were cold, calculating. You went back to work the next day as if nothing had happened." "Because I didn't know how to handle it," Michael exploded. "I'd never been through anything like that. I was scared, Jennifer, scared of seeing you suffer and not knowing how to help." Sarah watched the couple truly looking at each other for the first time since she'd arrived at that house. There was as much love as pain in their gazes, and she felt her own eyes filling with tears. "Patricia would hold me when I cried," Jennifer whispered. "She was the only one who didn't try to convince me everything was okay. She just stayed with me." "What happened to her?" Michael asked softly. "I was cruel," Jennifer admitted, ashamed. "When the pain became unbearable, I took it out on everyone. I yelled at her, blamed her for things that weren't her fault, until one day I said terrible things." Sarah stepped closer. "What kind of things?" "I told her she'd never understand my pain because she'd never had children." Jennifer covered her face again. "But I didn't know. She'd also lost a baby years before. When she told me, I realized how cruel I'd been, but it was too late. She left that same day and never came back." The revelation hit Sarah like a punch to the gut. Patricia had never told her about her own loss. "Is that why you treat all the maids this way?" Sarah asked gently. "To push them away before they can get close?" Jennifer nodded, unable to speak. Michael was visibly shaken, processing the revelations about his wife and his own behavior. "Jennifer, why did you never tell me how you felt?" "Because you made me feel it was weakness," she replied. "You went back to work, reorganized our lives, made new plans. I felt like I was the only one who couldn't move on. I didn't move on, Michael admitted, his voice breaking. I ran away. I buried myself in work because it was easier than facing the pain. Sarah realized it was time to give the couple space, but she needed to say one last thing. "May I suggest something?" she asked delicately. Both looked at her. "You've spent 5 years carrying this pain alone when you could have carried it together. Maybe it's time to start sharing the weight." Michael took Jennifer's hand, and this time she didn't pull away. "You're right," he said. "About everything, I was a coward." "We both were," Jennifer corrected. "I turned my pain into anger and hurt innocent people." Sarah saw an opportunity and took it. "Can I make a proposal?" she asked. "Let me stay a few more weeks, not as a maid, but as a mediator, an outsider who can help you truly talk to each other." Michael and Jennifer exchanged glances, a silent communication passing between them. "Why would you do that?" Jennifer asked. "After how I treated you?" "Because my sister taught me that sometimes the hardest people to love are the ones who need it most." Sarah smiled sadly. "And because I know you can be happy again if you learn to share the pain instead of carrying it alone." In the days that followed, the Anderson household underwent a subtle but noticeable transformation. Sarah had moved into the maid's room, but her role was far from traditional. Yes, she cooked, but she also mediated difficult conversations and created opportunities for Michael and Jennifer to reconnect. The first hurdle came when Michael fell back into old habits, retreating to his office after dinner. "Where are you going?" Jennifer asked, a hint of her old sharpness in her voice. "I have some reports to review." "Michael," Sarah gently interjected, "remember what we talked about choices?" Michael paused at the office doorway, clearly torn between the comfort of work and the challenge of being present in his marriage. "The reports can wait until tomorrow," he finally said, returning to the living room. Jennifer looked genuinely surprised. "You don't have to stay if you don't want to." "I want to." Michael sat beside her on the couch. "I just don't know what to talk about." "How about starting with something good?" Sarah suggested. "How did you two meet?" The shy smile that appeared on Jennifer's face was the first genuinely happy expression Sarah had seen from her. "We met in a broken elevator," Jennifer began, and Michael laughed. "You were late for a job interview, and I was stuck between floors on my way to an important meeting," he added. "I was so nervous I started talking to myself, reciting the answers I'd rehearsed," Jennifer continued, her eyes shining. "Michael thought I was talking to him." "And I thought you were interviewing me for something," Michael chuckled. "I started answering your questions about professional qualifications." Sarah smiled, watching the couple remember who they were before the tragedy. But she knew these happy memories were just the first step. The real test came a few days later, when Jennifer had her first panic attack in front of Michael. They were watching TV when a diaper commercial came on. Jennifer began hyperventilating, her hands trembling uncontrollably. Michael froze, clearly unsure what to do. Sarah was in the kitchen but could hear Jennifer's ragged breathing. "Michael, breathe with her," Sarah guided from the other room, giving him a chance to help. "How?" "Breathe slowly and ask her to match your pace." Michael followed the instructions, holding Jennifer's hands and breathing exaggeratedly slow. In, out, in, out. Gradually, Jennifer managed to sync her breathing with his. When she finally calmed down, she looked at him with gratitude. "You stayed," she whispered. "Of course I did," he replied, confused. "Last time I had an episode like this, you left the house and didn't come back until the next day." Michael closed his eyes, clearly remembering. "I didn't know what to do. I thought I was making it worse by staying." "You were," Jennifer admitted, but running away didn't help either. It was time for Sarah to step in again. "Have you ever considered professional help?" she suggested. "A psychologist or therapist who understands grief?" Michael and Jennifer exchanged glances, both clearly uncomfortable with the idea. "We're not crazy," Jennifer said defensively. "No one said you are," Sarah replied patiently. "But you've been through significant trauma without any support. It's normal to need help processing that." I can look up some professionals, Michael offered hesitantly. We can look, Jennifer corrected, and Sarah smiled inwardly. It was a small step, but in the right direction. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us so much as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. The breakthrough came 2 weeks later, when Sarah found Jennifer in what had clearly been a nursery. The door was always locked, but that day it was slightly ajar. Jennifer was sitting on the floor, holding a tiny blue onesie. I can't come in here without him, Jennifer said when she noticed Sarah at the door. Michael thinks we should turn this room into something else, but You're not ready, Sarah finished, stepping slowly into the room. I'll never be ready, Jennifer whispered. He should be here. He should be 2 years old now, running around the house, making a mess. Sarah sat on the floor beside her. What were you going to name him? Ethan, Jennifer smiled through her tears. Ethan Johnson Anderson. Michael wanted him to have a strong name. It's a beautiful name, Sarah said sincerely. Tell me about him. He kicked so much at night, Jennifer began, instinctively touching her stomach. Michael used to talk to him, telling him he needed to let Mommy sleep, and he'd stop kicking like he was really listening. Michael was going to be a devoted father. He was, Jennifer agreed. He'd already put the crib together and was reading books about how to change diapers. He was more nervous than I was. And when you lost Ethan, how did Michael react? Jennifer was quiet for a long moment. He held me during the procedure, cried with me at the hospital. But when we got home, it was like he put on a mask. She paused, said we had to be practical, that it was better it happened early before we got even more attached. But you were already attached. I was attached from the first ultrasound, Jennifer admitted. And I know he was too. But he thought pretending it didn't hurt would make it easier. Sarah was processing this when Michael appeared in the doorway. He stopped when he saw the two of them in the nursery. Jennifer, he said softly. Come in, she said, surprising him. It's been a while since you've been in here. Michael stepped in hesitantly, looking around the room he'd helped decorate with such care. I can't come in here without feeling like I failed you, he admitted. What do you mean? I should have protected you. Should have done something differently. Michael sat on the floor with them. The doctors said it was a rare condition, that there was nothing we could have done, but You blame yourself. Jennifer understood. Every day, he confessed. And when I saw you hurting so much, I felt even guiltier, like my pain didn't matter, because I didn't carry him inside me. Sarah watched as the couple finally saw each other clearly, without the masks they'd worn for 5 years. Your pain is different but equally valid, she said gently. Jennifer lost the baby growing inside her. Michael lost the son he already loved and the dreams he had for the future. Michael took Jennifer's hand. I'm sorry I wasn't there for you, that I ran away when you needed me most. I'm sorry I pushed you away, she replied, and for taking my anger out on innocent people. Sarah knew this was a crucial moment. They were finally connecting, but they needed a plan to move forward. Can I suggest something? She asked. They both looked at her. How about writing a letter to Ethan, together, telling him about your love, the dreams you had, how much you miss him but how your love remains? Michael and Jennifer exchanged glances, considering the suggestion. And then, Jennifer asked, then you decide what to do with it. You can put them away, you can bury them symbolically, you can burn them. What matters is that you do it together, as a family that he will always be part of. That evening, Michael and Jennifer sat at the kitchen table with paper and pen. Sarah gave them privacy, but could hear soft murmurs and occasional sobs coming from the kitchen. 2 hours later, they emerged with red eyes but expressions lighter than Sarah had seen in weeks. Thank you, Jennifer said simply. For what? Sarah asked. For teaching us that we can honor Ethan without being trapped in grief, Michael replied. But Sarah knew there was still work to be done. The connection was being rebuilt, but years of destructive patterns wouldn't disappear overnight. The real test came when the first new staff member was interviewed for a position in the house. Jennifer was visibly tense, and Sarah could see the old defensive instincts resurfacing. "She seems very young," Jennifer murmured, watching the candidate through the window. "Too young for what?" Michael asked. For understanding how to keep a house organized," Jennifer answered. But Sarah heard the real concern. Too young not to stir painful memories of dreams and possibilities. "How about you conduct the interview together with Michael?" Sarah suggested. "That way, you can decide as a team if she's the right fit." The interview was tense at first. The candidate, a young woman named Amber, 22 years old, was clearly nervous. Jennifer asked straightforward questions about experience and references, but Sarah noticed she was being fair, not cruel. "Why do you want to work here?" Jennifer asked. "I need the job," Amber replied honestly. "My mother is sick, and I need to help pay for her medicine." Sarah saw something shift in Jennifer's expression. The young woman's honesty and vulnerability seemed to touch her. "What kind of illness does your mother have?" Michael asked gently. "Diabetes. She needs insulin and the medication is expensive," Amber explained, clearly uncomfortable sharing personal details. Jennifer and Michael exchanged a glance, a silent communication passing between them. "Amber, you're hired," Jennifer said, "but I need you to know this house has been through difficult times recently. Sometimes I might get stressed or moody. If that happens, I want you to tell me right away, okay?" Amber seemed surprised by the honesty. "Of course, Mum. And if you ever need time off for your mother, just let us know in advance. We can adjust the schedule," Michael added. After Amber left, Jennifer turned to Sarah. "How did I do?" "You were human," Sarah smiled. "And that's all any employee could ask for." The following days brought new challenges. Amber was hardworking and respectful, but she inevitably made small mistakes as she adjusted to the household routine. Each mistake was a test for Jennifer. When Amber broke a vase while cleaning, Sarah watched Jennifer take a deep breath before responding. "Accidents happen," Jennifer said calmly. "Just be careful not to cut yourself on the pieces." It was a completely different reaction from the woman Sarah had met weeks before. But the real progress came when Jennifer began opening up about other aspects of her life. During lunch one day, she casually mentioned she had studied education before getting married. "You wanted to be a teacher?" Sarah asked. "I wanted to work with young children," Jennifer admitted. "I always loved the idea of helping shape young minds." Michael looked surprised. "You never told me that." "It seemed irrelevant after we got married," Jennifer shrugged. "And then when we were expecting, I thought I'd be a full-time mum. And after we lost Ethan, the idea of working with children must have become painful," Sarah observed gently. Jennifer nodded. "I couldn't even walk past a school without crying." "And now?" Michael asked. Jennifer considered the question carefully. "Now? It still hurts, but it's a different kind of pain. It's not that agony that made me want to disappear anymore. It's more like longing mixed with love." Sarah saw an opportunity. "There's a community daycare in the neighborhood that always needs volunteers," she mentioned casually. "Nothing too demanding, maybe just a few hours a week helping with activities." Jennifer stayed quiet for a long moment. "I don't know if I'm ready for that." "You don't have to decide now," Michael said, taking her hand, "but maybe it's something to consider in the future." The word consider didn't go unnoticed by Sarah. Michael was learning to include Jennifer in decisions, and she was learning to accept support. The turning point came when Patricia, Sarah's sister, finally agreed to visit the house. Sarah had spent weeks convincing her, and Jennifer was extremely nervous. "What if she doesn't forgive me?" Jennifer asked for the 10th time that morning. "Then you'll have an honest conversation about it," Sarah replied patiently. "But don't underestimate the power of a sincere apology." When Patricia arrived, the tension in the air was palpable. She was an older version of Sarah with graying hair and gentle eyes that carried traces of old sorrow. "Patricia," Jennifer stood up nervously as she entered the room. "Thank you for coming." Patricia nodded politely but kept her distance. "Sarah said you wanted to talk to me." "I wanted to apologize," Jennifer began, her voice trembling, "for what I said to you 5 years ago, for the cruel things I said when you were only trying to help me." Patricia studied her for a moment. You were hurting, she said simply. That doesn't excuse how I treated you, Jennifer insisted. You had lost a baby too, and I threw that in your face as if your pain was less than mine. Patricia's eyes filled with tears. You remember that? I remember every cruel word I said, Jennifer admitted, and I regret all of them. Patricia slowly sat on the couch. I lost my son at 6 months pregnant, she said quietly. It was 15 years ago, but sometimes I still wake up expecting to feel him move. Jennifer cautiously moved closer. How did you keep going? Who said I kept going? Patricia smiled sadly. I learned to carry the pain in a way that didn't destroy the rest of my life. But moving on, that implies leaving it behind, and I could never do that. Michael, who had stayed quiet the whole time, finally spoke. How do you do it? How do you carry that pain without losing your mind? Some people talk about acceptance, but I prefer to think of it as integration, Patricia explained. The pain becomes part of you, but not the part that controls everything. And how do we get there? Jennifer asked. By talking about it, crying when you need to cry, and most importantly, not carrying it alone. Patricia looked meaningfully at Michael. Shared pain isn't exactly smaller, but it's more bearable. At that moment, Sarah knew her mission was almost complete. Jennifer and Michael were learning to navigate their grief together, and Patricia was finding healing by helping others process similar losses. But there was still one last important conversation. That night, after Patricia left, Michael and Jennifer sat in the baby's room, something they now did regularly. I think I'm ready, Jennifer said suddenly. Ready for what? To turn this room into something new, she explained. Not because I want to forget Ethan, but because I want this space to represent possibilities rather than just loss. Michael was surprised. Are you sure? I am. I was thinking we could keep some of his things. The ultrasound photo, the blue onesie, maybe the teddy bear you bought. She paused. But the rest we can donate to families in need. And what would you like to do with the room? Jennifer smiled for the first time in a long while. An office, a place where I can study and prepare to go back to working with children. Michael kissed her softly. I think Ethan would be proud to know his room is becoming a place where you'll learn to help other children. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. In the months that followed, the transformation in the Anderson household was remarkable. The baby's room became a cozy office where Jennifer studied updated education and child psychology. Michael had cut back his work hours to be more present, and they had started couples therapy. Amber, the young housekeeper, adapted well to the routine and developed a respectful relationship with both employers. Jennifer never yelled at staff again, and Michael learned to be emotionally present, not just financially. Patricia knew it was time to leave, but first she wanted to propose one last idea. Have you ever thought about using part of this house to help others? She suggested during dinner. How so? Michael asked. Well, you have plenty of space, financial resources, and now experience in dealing with loss and rebuilding. Maybe you could turn the house into a place of refuge. Jennifer was immediately intrigued. What kind of refuge? For couples who've gone through pregnancy or neonatal loss, Patricia explained. A place where they can talk, share experiences, and receive support. Michael and Jennifer exchanged glances, and Patricia could see the idea taking hold. It wouldn't be like a formal institution, Michael said thoughtfully. More like regular gatherings here at home. Exactly. You could offer the space, and maybe Sarah could help facilitate some of the conversations, Patricia suggested. What about you? Jennifer asked. Would you stay to help us organize this? Patricia smiled. Actually, I was thinking of starting my own business. Family mediation. I found I have a knack for helping people reconnect. We could give you referrals, Michael offered, and fund your first office. That's not necessary, Patricia protested. It's the least we can do, Jennifer insisted. You saved our marriage, our sanity. You saved yourselves, Patricia corrected. I just helped you remember how to talk. The first support group meeting took place 3 months later. Jennifer and Michael had turned the living room into a welcoming space with comfortable sofas arranged in a circle. Sarah came to help, along with a grief counselor they'd met during their own therapy. 6 couples attended, all at different stages of processing their loss. Some were angry, others depressed, some already finding ways to move forward. "Welcome to our home," Jennifer began with Michael beside her. "You're here because you've been through something no one should have to endure, but you're also here because you've decided not to carry this pain alone." Michael continued, "We're not therapists or experts. We're just a couple who nearly destroyed ourselves because we didn't know how to handle loss, and who learned that sharing the pain makes it bearable." A woman in the group began to cry. "It's just that everyone keeps telling me I should be grateful that at least I got pregnant, as if that lessens the pain." "No one here will say that to you," Jennifer responded firmly. "Your pain is valid, no matter how long your pregnancy lasted or how many children you already have." The meeting lasted 3 hours. There were tears, heart-to-heart talks, moments of respectful silence, and even some laughter when couples shared happy memories of their babies. At the end, a young woman approached Jennifer. "Thank you," she said simply. "It's the first time in months I haven't felt crazy for being sad." "You're not crazy," Jennifer replied, hugging her. "You're grieving, and grief is love with no place to go." Sarah, watching from a distance, felt her heart warm. The woman once known for humiliating employees was now offering comfort to strangers in pain. 6 months later, the program had grown. Besides the bi-weekly meetings for couples, Jennifer had created a monthly group for women, and Michael led a quarterly group for men who had lost children. The house, once a mausoleum of silence and pain, had become a beacon of hope and healing. Jennifer returned to studying and began a specialization course in grief psychology. Michael learned to balance work and personal life and developed an unexpected passion for counseling other men on emotional vulnerability. Amber continued working for them, but now also helped organize the meetings and became a sort of administrative assistant for the program. Her mother, whose diabetes was well controlled thanks to the health plan Michael arranged, occasionally came to help prepare snacks for the groups. Patricia moved to a nearby home and became an integral part of the program. She found that helping others process loss brought renewed meaning to her own grief. And Sarah? She opened her family mediation office in a commercial space not far from the Anderson mansion. Her schedule was always full. Apparently, many families needed to relearn how to talk to each other. The program gained recognition in the community. A local newspaper ran a story about the couple who turned personal tragedy into a mission of help. A nearby university began sending psychology interns to observe and learn. But perhaps the most meaningful moment came on the program's first anniversary. Jennifer and Michael held a special ceremony in the garden, planting a tree in memory of all the babies participants had lost. "This tree will grow and bear fruit," Jennifer said during the ceremony, "just as you will grow and find ways to turn your pain into something that nourishes others." A man in the group raised his hand. "I wanted to share something. When my wife and I first came here, I was convinced our marriage wouldn't survive. Today I can say we're closer than before the loss." "How?" a woman asked. "We stopped trying to protect each other from the pain and started sharing it," his wife replied. "We learned we can be broken and strong at the same time." Michael took Jennifer's hand, both remembering when they were in the same desperate place. "The goal isn't to get over the loss," Michael said. "It's to learn to honor our children by living in a way that would make them proud." After the ceremony, when the guests had left, Jennifer and Michael sat on the garden bench, looking at where they'd planted the tree. "Do you think Ethan would be proud?" Jennifer asked. "I think he'd be proud to see his parents stop living in the past and started building a future that includes him, but isn't limited by losing him," Michael answered. "Sometimes I feel like he gave us a purpose we wouldn't have found otherwise," Jennifer mused. "That's a beautiful way to look at things. I learned it from a very wise housekeeper," Jennifer smiled, "that sometimes the greatest lessons come from the most unlikely people." At that moment, Amber appeared with a tray of tea. "Sorry to interrupt, but Sarah called. She wants to schedule dinner for next week." Of course, Michael said. Amber, sit here with us for a while. Amber seemed surprised but sat down. Can I ask you something? She said hesitantly. Of course. Have you always been like this? So kind to each other? Jennifer and Michael laughed. Definitely not, Jennifer admitted. When you first started working here, we barely spoke. I was a very bitter person. What changed? Someone had the courage to throw orange juice in my face and force me to face the truth, Jennifer replied, unconsciously touching her cheek. And we learned that marriage isn't about never having problems, Michael added. It's about facing them together. Amber smiled. My mother always says the best marriages are made of two people who decide never to give up on the same day. Your mother is a wise woman, Jennifer agreed. As the sun set over the mansion's garden, the three continued talking. The house that had once been a symbol of isolation and pain now pulsed with life, purpose, and human connection. In the office that had once been a nursery, the shelves were filled with books on psychology, education, and counseling. The desk was covered in thank you letters from people who had attended the support groups. One letter in particular was framed on the wall. It was from a woman who had lost twins and was considering divorce when she came to the program. She wrote, "You taught me there's no timeline for grief, but there is hope for healing. My marriage was saved in this house, and my faith in humanity was restored. Thank you for turning your greatest pain into our greatest hope." In the desk drawer, carefully kept, was the letter Jennifer and Michael had written to Ethan on that first difficult night. They never burned or buried it. Instead, it became a reminder of where they started and how far they'd come. The letter ended with a promise they had kept. We'll make sure your love keeps living in this world by helping others find light in the darkness. And so, a house marked by tragedy became a sanctuary of healing. A woman once known for her cruelty became synonymous with compassion. A marriage that had nearly crumbled became an example of how love can survive the most devastating storms. And it all started with a brave housekeeper who refused to accept that things couldn't change, who made the bold decision to throw orange juice in the face of the status quo and demand something better. The end. Now tell me, what did you think of Jennifer and Michael's story? Do you believe it's possible to turn pain into purpose? Have you ever been in a situation where someone brave helped you see a hard truth? Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more heartwarming stories.